Stink bug season. Oh, I need to kill it. Hey guys, welcome back to Sparkman Homestead. My name is Krista. As you can see, we are now in stink bug season. This happens every single year around this time, like the beginning of fall. And it's because, what I think, is because our farmers just all cut the corn. And so I find that as soon as they cut the corn or the soybeans, it just brings all of the stink bugs up, all of the Asian beetles, and they just all try to come into your house. And it's a battle of trying to get them out of the house. There's a particular way that you have to kill these insects because you can't just squish them and kill them because they release a smell. Stink bugs in particular is just horrible. That's how they get their name, stink bugs. But also when you do that, same with the Asian beetles, it actually releases that scent that actually attracts the other ones to come. So you don't want to do that. You just want to kind of kill them with the vacuum cleaner. That is a little trick that I've learned. Anyways, today's project we are going to get done. I've done a video of this in the past, but I'm going to do another one because it is worthy of resharing. It is one of our favorite condiments. Today we're going to make an A1 sauce. We opened our last jar last week and this is all we have left of it. So I need to get some more made. We put this on chicken, we put this on steak. Now the recipe that I have written out here is not one that I got from a canning cookbook. It's actually a recipe that you can just make and put into your fridge. So we are probably going to end up 4 timesing this recipe because I want to get a good stock of it in the pantry because like I said, we use this as our most used condiment when it comes to like chicken, steak. I've never put it on fish or pork. Now there is a recipe for a steak sauce that I did find online that is canning safe. So I will link that recipe below for you guys. There's just a couple of different ingredients in it. The recipe that I am making today is a canning safe recipe. So I am perfectly fine making this recipe and canning it. So we're gonna do that. And then if we have a spare second, we are gonna get some chicken bouillon. I think that's how you say it. Bouillon. We're gonna get that made. I have a recipe for both a beef and a chicken one, and I really would love to get that in my pantry. One thing that I really like to do when I am getting a recipe made is I love to have all of my ingredients out on the counter. That way I have everything available to me and I can just make the recipe like this. I don't have to worry about stopping and going to find something. And I have had it happen a couple of times, which is now why I really buy my stuff in bulk. But I have had it a couple times where I've been in the middle of a recipe and run out of something and I didn't know it before I started the recipe because I didn't get stuff out ahead of time. So it kind of works for that way to find out if you actually have all the ingredients you need. So the first thing I'm gonna get out of my pantry, I moved them. I moved them. Where did I move them to? A couple weeks ago, I did a reorganization in my kitchen. Can't remember where I put the raisins. I think I put them in here. Yes, I did. Okay. This recipe calls for golden raisins. I thought I had, oh, these are them right here. Okay. So these are some golden raisins. Now, I don't have enough to, maybe I do. I don't know if I have enough to 4 times this recipe because it calls for a 1/4 cup of golden raisins. I think we maybe have a cup in here. It should be good. If not, I will just sub in some regular raisins. These are just some flame raisins that I got from Azure Standard. So delicious. These are my favorite raisins. So, got our raisins. That's perfect. We need some balsamic vinegar. So I am going to use this stuff. How much do we need of this? We need 1/2 cup. So let's go to the pantry because I know this is not going to be enough for our recipe. So let's go to our overstock pantry and grab another bottle. Let's see. There we go. We got one more bottle of that. I need some garlic and onion. I'm just going to use my pre-chopped frozen stuff. Saves me time when preparing. And then we need Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire, whatever you call it. And then we need Dijon mustard. Okay. Cayenne pepper. We need black pepper. We need salt, and then we need celery seed. We also need ketchup, and we need an orange. Got some of my homemade ketchup here. We might need a little bit more of that ketchup, and that's fine. We have more in the pantry. Because we're 4 timesing it, I'm going to need 2 oranges. So I'm just using a navel orange. These guys were not cheap. They were $1 each at the grocery store, and I went to Walmart. $1 each. And then I looked at the orange bag to see if I could get it cheaper to get a bag of oranges, and it was like $6 for I think like 5 or 6 oranges. Expensive right now. But these are kind of like the secret ingredient in this recipe. I know you think it's weird having the orange in a steak sauce. This and the golden raisins is kind of what makes your recipe a little bit more better than your standard steak sauce recipe. So it says 2 tablespoons of chopped onion. So we're gonna times for this recipe. So I'm gonna get out some bowls. Now, if you want to make the standard recipe, it's really good. If you're not sure if you're going to like it or not, just follow the standard recipe, and then that will make, I believe, like 1 pint, and that's good enough for you just to test it out and see if you like it. So if you like it, you can do what I'm doing and times it by 4. But like I said, this is our favorite steak sauce. Got my onions out. I just don't want them to thaw out, so I want to get the onions and garlic done right away so I can get these back in my freezer. Okay, so it calls for 2 cloves of garlic cut in half. I don't have whole cloves of garlic. I had to process all of my garlic because it was all not going to store well. So I don't have any actual cloves of garlic. So I'm just going to grab 2 of these, actually 3. I'll grab 3 of these things of minced garlic. There's probably about 3 garlic cloves in each one of those things. So we'll grab 3 out and get these back in the freezer. Let's check and see how much ketchup it calls for. So it calls for 1/4 cup of ketchup and a 1/4 cup of Dijon mustard. So do I have, yeah, it looks like I have a cup in here. So that's good. The Worcestershire sauce also calls for 1/4 cup. So we have enough of that. And then half of an orange cut into 2 pieces. So like I said, we'll need 2 oranges for that. We have everything out now. Let's get our phone for a second. I wanted to check the recipe to double check and see if it was water bath or pressure canner. I was pretty sure it was water bath, and I was right. So we have our water bath canner right there. We have our pint-sized jars in it. For this recipe, I like to use regular mouth mason jars. Usually if I'm canning something that is a sauce and I'm going to dump it into something else, I like to use regular mouth jars. And I like to save my wide mouth jars for things that I'm gonna have to reach in and get. Pickles or just, I don't know, what else? Anything that I'm gonna have to reach in and get that I'm not gonna use all in one, just dump. You know what I'm saying. Reach in, wide mouth, anyways. So we're gonna use a heavy bottom stock pot for this. That way we can ensure that it doesn't burn. We are gonna get our oranges washed. Make sure they're clean. Need to get 2 cups of water. The normal recipe calls for half a cup of water. 2 cups. We're gonna get all of our ingredients put into the stock pot. So we're gonna do the 2 cups of water. Again, half a cup for the original recipe. 1/4 cup of raisins, golden raisins. So we're gonna put a cup in here. Let's not do that over the thing. Perfect. We got a little bit more than a cup, but I don't want to leave any in here. I just want to use them all. We'll add the raisins in here. And then we're going to do 2 cups of balsamic vinegar. If you're doing a regular recipe, it's only half of a cup. Maybe I should shake it. Looks like there's a lot of settlement on the bottom. Add our 2 cups of vinegar in here. And then we need 1 cup of ketchup. So it is your choice what you want to do in this situation. You can use a sugar-free ketchup if you are trying to watch your sugar. I'm going to use the stuff that I made. This does have quite a bit of sugar in it. Now this recipe does not have any additional sugar in it, and I think it's because you're using a ketchup which is already pre-sweetened. So if you want, you could use a sugar-free ketchup, like whatever you use for your ketchup, you'd be able to put that into this recipe. Oh, the other thing too is the recipe says to use an aged balsamic vinegar. I have always used just the regular balsamic vinegar, and this is again our favorite recipe, so it doesn't really make a difference. You don't really need to use the aged stuff, but if you have it, you could use that. Okay, and so how much do we need of the ketchup? So it calls for a 1/4 cup ketchup, so we'll put in 1 cup of ketchup. 1 cup of Dijon mustard. I'm gonna shake this first. Oh, we're getting low. We had just a cup in here. Let's add that in. If you have regular mustard and you don't have Dijon, you could probably get away with subbing it. Might change the taste of the sauce. I'm not sure. I don't have a really good suggestion on if it's gonna change it too much. I don't know if it would or not. Okay, and then we need 1 cup of Worcestershire. So guys, remember I am 4 timesing this recipe. So you're only gonna use a 1/4 cup of these things if you just wanna try it out and see if you like it. I love bifocals. I have to like literally look at the thing right close because my up close vision is on my bottom because I cannot see anything up close. And my far vision, I'm getting to the point where I can't see anything far away either. So I am already in bifocals. Ugh, hate it. I'm just making sure I have 1 cup in here. We have 1 cup. And Worcestershire sauce, key ingredient in this recipe. So we'll add that in there. The next ingredient is completely optional. You do not have to add it, but it is for cayenne pepper. It calls for a pinch of cayenne pepper. If you do not want any spice at all in this, you can just omit this. I don't find that this sauce is spicy at all, and I always put it in. I have these super cute little measuring spoons. You can see it, but one is a pinch, one is a dash, and one is a smidge. So we are going to put in a pinch of cayenne pepper. So we're going to do 4 pinches. I believe a pinch is 1/8 of a teaspoon, but that could be a dash. I'm not sure. I don't even know where I got these. I know for sure I did not get them at a store. I probably found them at Goodwill or at an estate sale. That's usually how I acquire my things. So we did 4 pinches of cayenne pepper. Now we're going to get into some real measurements. We're going to do a teaspoon of ground black pepper. Again, that's just a 1/4 teaspoon. And then we are going to put in our garlics. So it says 2 cloves of garlics cut in half, but again, as I explained earlier, we're just going to use our minced stuff. I've actually never used just plain cloves. I've always just used minced stuff in this. And then we're going to do our chopped onions, which was 2 tablespoons of chopped onions. So times that by 4 if you're doing like me. And then we're going to do 2 teaspoons of celery seed because it calls for 1/2 teaspoon. And then 1 teaspoon of salt. So it says 1 orange cut in half and then cut that slice in half. So 1/4 an orange. We're going to take our oranges and we're just going to squeeze in here. If you get any of the seeds in here, that's perfectly fine because we actually end up straining this out at the very end. So don't worry about it. So after you squeeze it, drop the rind in. And this is why we strain it at the end, to get the rinds out, to get any of the bigger onion pieces out. And if you are using like bigger pieces of garlic, it also gets that out at the end. I don't know if you could just use plain orange juice as a replacement because I know that the rinds do add quite a bit of orange taste to this. Well, not really orange taste. It doesn't taste like orange at the end, but I would stick to using just the whole oranges and not an orange juice. But you can definitely experiment. I don't want to say don't use orange juice. Like if that's all you have, then use what you have. But if you have oranges available, definitely use the orange in it. Okay, and I'm just gonna whisk this just to get all of the ingredients incorporated, like the mustard, the ketchup. Just want everything all mixed together. Well, that's what it looks like before we're gonna get it on the stovetop. Really runny, but this will thicken up. So we're gonna get this on the stovetop. And what are we gonna turn it to? We are gonna get this turned on a low heat. So we want to lightly simmer this. The recipe does state just to keep it very gentle and do not hard boil this. You just want to have a really light simmer boil. So we're just gonna kind of watch this. Now I find that this usually takes about 45 to an hour to thicken up to my consistency that I like. The goal is to kind of have this consistency. It's not super, super thick. It's like ketchup consistency. You just don't want it really, really runny. So we're gonna try to get it to this thickness. And I think last time I made this, it took about an hour. This time I'm gonna write it down, how long it actually took. You know what? I think I'm gonna do a taste test just to make sure we have everything right in here. Pretty sure we do. That's good. Very vinegary right now because nothing's really thickened up and the orange really hasn't gotten into the sauce yet. So it's very vinegar based, but it doesn't end up tasting like that at the end. You've got to give time for those onions to get into it and the garlic and the orange peels. Everything just has to work together. Okay, let's get that to a very light simmer. So while we're waiting for this to come to a boil, because or not come to a boil, while we're waiting for this to thicken, we're gonna get a couple of mixes made. A long time ago, I used to be vegan and obviously did not eat meat products. So one cookbook that I had, I don't think I have the cookbook anymore. I'll double check and see, and if I have it, I can leave it linked for you guys. But there was a couple recipes in there showing me how to make a chicken and beef bouillon. I've had a really, really hard time trying to find an organic option for the chicken and the beef. So I tend to not make a lot of recipes that call to use that stuff. I do make the recipes, I just modify them quite a bit. So this is what I have been using for my beef bouillon. It's a beef base, but once you open this, you have to keep it in the fridge so it is not shelf stable. And I really like to have things that I don't have to keep in the fridge. That is an option that you can use for a beef or chicken bouillon, but again, trying to just keep stuff on my shelf because I don't like having my fridge overrun with stuff. Not only that, but I just don't like having to rely on electricity to keep my stuff fresh. So we're gonna do a non-meat shelf-stable version of some chicken and beef bouillon. That way we can have them on our pantry shelf and not have to worry about them going bad. So we're gonna get started making the chicken one. I'm gonna use a food processor to make mine because you need to have it really, really finely ground. You could also use a coffee grinder like I did in last week's video when I made that Kinder's copycat version of the cowboy butter. But we're gonna use the mini food processor today. I have it set on my puree function. I just came in and gave this a little bit of a stir because it looks like it's starting to heat up now and I don't want it to boil. So I'm just kind of watching the temperature and just stirring it. All right, to get started with the chicken stuff, we're gonna use nutritional yeast, and you wanna use 1 cup of nutritional yeast. When I didn't eat meat or dairy products, this stuff was my go-to for cheese replacements. I find that it tastes a lot like Parmesan cheese. Well, now that I'm eating actual Parmesan cheese, it doesn't taste like it so much, but if you are not eating dairy products, then definitely you can get away with using this as a good cheese replacement. It's really good on popcorn too. We need 3 tablespoons of onion powder, 3 tablespoons of garlic powder, 3.5 tablespoons, I think it's tablespoons, yep, tablespoons of oregano. I'm also using all dried stuff because this is going to be shelf stable, so you want to make sure you're using dried herbs. I have to stop for a second because this is coming to a boil and I don't want it to boil. Then we need 3.5 tablespoons of basil, 2 tablespoons of parsley, and then half a tablespoon of celery seed. Oh, and pepper. I need pepper. I need 2 tablespoons of black pepper. This is why I always get my ingredients out beforehand, because I would have just gone on to the next step had that pepper not been sitting there in the spot. If you notice, I'm putting everything that I used over on this side and anything that I hadn't used yet was over here. And it's because I don't have a memory. I can't remember anything to save my life. I do that to help me remember, oh, I didn't use it. So I'm glad I did that, because otherwise I would have not put the black pepper in. Okay, let's put this on, get it blended up. Also, this recipe has no salt in it. If you want to add a little bit of salt, you could probably get away with adding about 1 to 2 teaspoons of salt in this, but I am wanting to keep it salt-free. That way I can salt as needed and it's not already pre-salted in here. Just to forewarn you, this is not going to taste like that over-processed stuff that you get at the grocery store. It is not going to have that artificial chicken taste to it. So I just want to set your expectations. This is not going to be like that. I honestly find it's a little bit of a, I don't want to say a learning curve, but a little bit of a taste curve to kind of get used to not eating processed stuff. You get used to not having the overly artificial taste. Like I find that the stuff that you get at the grocery store, the stuff that is bright orange, it's just, it tastes too salty, and in my opinion, it's just not the best thing for you. So I would rather have a healthier version. A lot of these herbs I actually grew in my garden myself. So again, it's being more self-sufficient. This jar may have been a little bit of overkill. Probably didn't need this big of a jar. I honestly don't use beef bouillon too much, so I don't want to make like a huge batch. This will be perfect for me. That's how much it makes. This is a quart-sized jar. I might actually put it in a pint-sized jar. Let's go grab a pint-sized jar right now before we get the beef stuff started. I'm going to use a wide mouth one for this because I most likely will be spooning things in and out of it. It's not necessarily a pour thing. Use a wide mouth jar for that. Pint-sized jar, much better. Get a reusable lid. And I am going to label this so I know what it is because I have a tendency to forget these things. Okay, so let's get started with the beef one. I'm not going to be too concerned with getting this rinsed out. A lot of the ingredients are the exact same thing, so I'm not too concerned with it. Okay, for the beef one, we're going to get started with 3/4 of a cup of dried mustard powder, or ground mustard powder is what I call it. 1/3 cup of paprika. I'm going to use a regular sweet paprika in this. You could use a smoked paprika, and that would give your beef bouillon a little bit of a smoky taste. But whoopsie. We're just going to use a little bit more than 1/3 cup. And then we're going to use 1/3 cup of garlic powder. I need to put a new bag in here. I do have more garlic powder. I just wanted to wait until I got close to the end. And then we need 3 tablespoons of onion powder, 3 tablespoons of chili powder. Now this is going to make my beef bouillon a little bit spicy. I'm probably only going to do 2.5 because this is a medium chili seasoning, so it does have quite a bit of heat to it. So I don't want to use as much as it calls for. This does have a very strong taste to it. The other thing too is I use this in my taco seasoning, and I find that it just makes it a lot more spicier than normal. So we'll only use 2.5 tablespoons of that. And then the last thing is celery seed, and we're going to use 1 tablespoon. Again, this is salt-free, so if you want to add salt, feel free to do that. There we go, there's our beef bouillon. Exactly a pint. There we go, beef bouillon. So we got our chicken and beef. Keep stirring this because I just want to make sure that it's thickening up. It's very thin right now. So I'm thinking it's probably going to be about an hour to thicken up. We're at a good thickness. It is still kind of runny, but I'm hoping that as it cools down, it will thicken up a little bit. I'm going to show you guys how much this has reduced. It is reduced so much. So you see the line where we started the project is right there. It is reduced so much. It's still pretty runny, but it is also very hot, which stuff is in its thinnest consistency when it is really hot. So we're going to move to the next step because I have a fear that if we keep boiling it till it gets to like the super thickness that I want, we're going to be down to 1 pint. I think right now we're at about 3 pints. So we're gonna move to the next step. I have a strainer here. I'm hoping this is not too small. I always underestimate the size of strainer I need. So we're gonna strain this out. And then we'll compost the scraps. accidentally spilled some stuff in there, so I'm just gonna do another quick strain. So we got it all strained out. I'm hoping we get 4 pints, but I'm not thinking we will. Maybe 3. I really should have timed this recipe by 8. I didn't have enough raisins. So my Azure standard order actually closes tonight. I'm gonna order some more golden raisins and maybe do another batch next week when my order comes in. So we're gonna fill up some pint-sized jars. We are going to leave, I need to double check the recipe. I think it's 1/2 inch headspace, but I wanna double check. Yep, 1/2 inch headspace. Probably only get 2 pints. We will debubble our measly little 2 pints. And it is still super runny. I'm really hoping it thickens up when it cools down. Just gonna clean the tops of the jars off. Let's make sure they're good. Get our lids, put them on. We get our rings to fingertip tight. I really should be using my countertop canner for this because it's such a small load, but this water is already hot. So we'll just use this. Put our jars in here. Need to add a little bit more water. Want to make sure the jars are covered with at least 1 inch of water. So that's good. Put the lid on. We will bring these to a full rolling boil. Once they get to the full rolling boil, we're going to water bath can these for 15 minutes because we're doing pints. I'm so disappointed we only got 2 pints. I am definitely going to have to do another load next week because 2 pints isn't going to last us for very long. We usually go through at least 1 pint a month. So yeah. Definitely have to can some more next week when I get my raisins. What I do after it is done water bath canning for the 15 minutes is I take the lid off, I take it off the heat, and I let those jars rest in that canner for at least 5 minutes. After the 5 minutes, I take them out, lay them on a towel, and let them cool for at least 12 to 24 hours. After that time, I take the rings off, rinse them really good, and put them on my pantry shelf. I did a short, I think it was about 2 years ago, saying my 5 most favorite things to can. I might do another one, do an updated version of it, but the amount of comments that I've had people saying, why do you not store your rings on your jars when you store them? So when I'm canning, you only need that ring. So every time I put that ring on and I say, tighten the ring to fingertip tight, you only need that on there to keep the lid in place during the canning process. The whole reason you're canning stuff is to pressurize it, to suck that lid on there, not the ring, the lid. Once that lid is properly sealed to your jar, you no longer need that ring. That ring is just simply used during the canning process. So when I'm cleaning it, I take that ring off, make sure my jar is actually sealed. I do the test. I think I showed you guys a couple videos ago how I actually test them. Let's grab something out of here. Let's grab a bruschetta. So take the jar like this, and you see this part, I take it and I just lift it like this and shake it. That jar lid is not moving anywhere. It is pressurized, it is sealed. By the way, I need to get to use this bruschetta. I made this in 2023, so it needs to get used. Need to find a recipe. Anyways, this jar is still safely sealed. I can even tug on it and it's not moving. If I lift this jar up and it is not safely sealed, the jar is going to fall. Even if I apply pressure, that jar is going to obviously, the lid will come off. So if that happens, you know your jar is not safely sealed. But you do not need those rings to keep that lid in place. In fact, keeping the ring on during the storing process, that can actually create a false seal, and you don't want that. The same thing is also said about double stacking jars. Now I do double stack jars, but I do a very, very thick layer of cardboard in between the layers. So that is supposed to help them. But the same thing is said if you double stack, you're going to create a false seal. I don't know, I feel more safe about double stacking than I do with the rings. But the other reason too with the rings is it's not required. If I had to buy new rings for every time that I had to can something, that would cost me so much money. So I reuse the rings also. So you don't have to keep buying the lids with the rings. I literally get that question at least 2 to 3 times a week just from that one short about keeping the lids on. I also get that question about double stacking, because you can see down there I have my broths double stacked. So that's going to be it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for joining me as we spend the day in the kitchen. Some days I don't get to go out and do fun stuff. Some days I just, well, I mean, this is fun. I do enjoy being in the kitchen with you guys and canning. So some days it's just kitchen days. We don't get to go anywhere. But glad I got at least 2 pints of those A1 sauces on my pantry shelf. We'll have to do a really big load next week. We'll have to probably 20 times the recipe to get the amount that we need for the year in the pantry. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you have a great day or night whenever you're watching this, and I will see you on the next video. Bye guys.